Hello everybody, my name is Aaron Osborne and I'm currently working in the position of the Sustainability Technician for Dane County Facilities Management here in Madison, Wisconsin. In this video, I will be introducing you to a variety of different topics surrounding our composting system that will be implemented in a few different county-owned buildings. Here are the topics that I will be covering in today's video. Topic 1 is going to be why composting is even important. Topic 2 is going to be how will we be implementing our compost system in the Juvenile Detention Center. Topic 3 is what can be included in our compost system and why meats are actually allowed to be composted. Number 4 is what makes the Juvenile Detention Center a good starting point to start composting in county-owned facilities. And topic 5 is going to be talking about the circular life cycle of compost and how it supports the circular economy that we strive towards to be environmental stewards. Composting is important because it keeps organic matter out of the landfill. When organic matter goes into the landfill, it decomposes anaerobically, which means without oxygen. This is bad because the bacteria produces methane instead of CO2 as it breaks down the organic matter. And as we might know, methane is 28 times more potent than CO2. So, when compost is diverted from the landfill to compost facilities like Purple Cow, like we are going to, we are releasing CO2 instead of methane, which is much less potent. Not only does diverting organic matter from the landfills to compost facilities reduce the amount of harmful chemicals going into our atmosphere, it also reduces the amount of load and resources it takes to transport all that organic matter to our landfill, and it reduces the amount of filling we put into our landfill because the EPA suggests that 20% of the total solid waste produced in America is food waste. That's 1/5 of all of the waste. So not only does our planet benefit from composting, we as human beings and undeniable lovers of food definitely benefit from compost. Because after the 6-month decomposition process at Purple Cow composting facilities, where the 3 parts browns and 1 part greens are mixed together, we have a perfect organic fertilizer which we put back into our soil where the plants thrive and the microbacteria that is necessary for thriving plants can also thrive. And this completes the full life cycle of composting. And because compost is such a good organic fertilizer, we rely less heavily on synthetic fertilizers, which actually over time decreases our soil quality. Now, as cool and important as composting is, there are actually better methods we want to do before we start composting, and this is going to introduce our food recovery hierarchy. So at the top of the food recovery hierarchy, we have reduced the amount of source food being produced. If we have food being wasted, let's start with reducing the amount of food we are producing. Simple enough. Next up is going to be feed hungry people. So can be done by donating to food banks or just saving the food, freezing it for later meals. And next up is going to be feeding animals or livestock. So that can be donated to farms, or if you have your own chickens and stuff, you could bring the food there. And next up on the list, if those 3 options are not viable, then composting is the way to go. At the end of the day, food is meant to be eaten, so if we can eat it, then it's fulfilling its purpose. In order to ensure a smooth and successful implementation of a composting system within county-owned facilities, we will be working directly with Delaney Gobster of Waste and Renewables. Delaney Gobster of Waste and Renewables has been kind enough to provide us with a 5-gallon bucket, a 65-gallon trash bin, and she will be servicing us 1 time a week to pick up all the compost we produce at the Juvenile Detention Center. After a site visit to the Juvenile Detention Center and careful consideration, me and my partner in crime, Emma Slaymaker, have decided that having the 5-gallon bucket in the kitchen and then having the 5-gallon bucket filled and transported to the 65-gallon trash bin would be the best way to implement a composting system within the facilities. Emma and I will be responsible of bringing the 65-gallon trash bin from upstairs in the trash room in the Juvenile Detention Center to downstairs in the garage, where Delaney will pick up the 65-gallon bin and bring it to Purple Cow compost facilities. We believe that the Juvenile Detention Center will be a great place to start composting because we know that you guys need to produce an excess amount of food to account for the dynamic population within your facility. We decided to start small at the Juvenile Detention Center in order to build a successful case study when we decide to propose the composting initiative to the jail, where there will be a higher influx of organic material being diverted to Purple Cow composting facilities. So as we start composting, it might be a little confusing as to what we accept and don't accept in our compost system. But good news, we accept a lot of things. To begin, we will have a sticker on the buckets that will say what we accept and don't accept. And if you have ever composted yourself at your own home, you may be under the impression that meats are actually not allowed to be composted, and that is true in small-scale compost systems. It is not recommended to compost meats and dairies and such. But the thing that separates small-scale compost systems and large-scale compost systems is the amount of heat and turning that is involved in the composting process. The heat is able to kill off all the pathogens that may otherwise be harmful in smaller scale compost systems where there is not as much heat being produced. Because the Juvenile Detention Center is the first facility within Dane County to partake in this composting initiative, I do expect us to come across some hurdles. The two biggest problems that I see arising from this composting system may be unwanted fruit flies and bugs and unwanted odors. We have already researched some very simple solutions to reducing the amount of smell and the amount of insects that are attracted to our compost. So if this does become an issue, do not hesitate to reach out, as we will always be there to help and want this to be easy for all of us along the way. I truly do believe this is just the beginning of composting within the county, as the benefits are insurmountable, and it also makes the people who are composting feel like they're making a true impact in the world.